This episode is brought to you by The Skeptical Buddha, The Tao of Science, my book, which is a thoughtful discourse on Eastern philosophy and how it helped birth ideas required for science and skepticism and the way it fell behind in the face of new evidence. This book discusses the long history of both philosophies as well as the tenets and variations within the varying sects, along with psychology and our own natural biases. It discusses how to counter our natural biases using science and the underlying concepts of meditation and mindfulness, a more complex understanding of how science operates than most of the public understands, and why it is the best tool we have to discover truth and reality, as well as philosophical ideas we might embrace as technology progresses. The material is packaged in a way that the average person can understand, with rich illustrations to draw the reader in and feel at peace. I began making a list of things that used to be free, scarce, luxury, or communal from hunter-gatherer, agrarian to modern societies. In the ideal of all these areas, everything should be free or at least easy and fun to do, such as exercise. As you can see, there were trade-offs in our transition to different types of living. There are some things that modern society makes free and readily available and no longer a luxury that a person just 200 years ago could have never imagined having that need filled. However, we lost some things along the way too, some very important things, including the purposeful change from a larger community or tribe or village as our core unit down to the nuclear family and now purely the individual. So I believe we should start by creating new core units closer to the size of tribes, but now we also have the luxury of being individuals even more. Both are great and amazing, and the ability to have both alone time and belong and connect in person would make us all so much healthier. It's shown that trauma, which so many have in the world, is something that also prevents us from connecting. However, the only way to heal from trauma is to find connection with people you feel safe and supportive with, and we have no infrastructure for that. So people turn to drugs, and they've shown drug addictions just go away with enough of a community and the support network. An example of this is during Vietnam. Many soldiers did heroin like crazy because it was awful conditions, and then once they went back to their community, just stopped. People treat heroin as if it's absolutely addictive, but it's only addictive based on context and whether or not you have a social support network to replace it. In The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk, trauma is often stored in muscle memory and the instinctual nervous system, so purging it is so much harder as it will cause your heart to skyrocket, preventing you from thinking rationally, causing debilitating anxiety attacks anytime you get triggered. The other alternative in the fight, flight, or freeze is fight and get violent, much like with PTSD. Studies have shown good progress with therapies involving group movement, such as yoga or Tai Chi, or collective synchronization activities like singing together, chanting, or dancing. These can help not only rewire the muscle memory away from automatically getting triggered by trauma, but also help with feelings of bonding to the people you are doing that with. It's why gym memberships have done a great job at replacing church attendance, as they get the same feeling of connectedness that church has. However, if they fall away from the faith of getting to the gym, they can much more easily become disconnected than if they attended church, which has a multifaceted purpose. Religion at this point has a monopoly on sustainable community, which is why it's held up so well for so long, until many kept getting crazier and more hate-filled, which sensibilities and information change, pushing young people away, feeling an emptiness they tried to fill, but not understanding what it was they were actually missing. According to the religion, there's a Jesus-sized hole in their heart. So let's create a pod with our new pod builder platform. People like to use the term tribe, but there's a bit of potential cultural appropriation and misunderstanding involved with that, so let's go with pod, which is a term for one of our closest intellectual equals, the cetaceans, whales and dolphins. Primates use the term troop, which has too many military connotations, while elephants use a herd, which has its own brainwashing connotations. I mean, I guess we could go with a murder, but it might deter people from joining, so we'll go with a pod. First off, we should try and group people a little differently than most groups of current social media platforms do. Divisions by race, gender, age are all arbitrary and don't actually help in most circumstances. These are more roundabout ways to help get at common experiences and communication styles that it may or may not actually reach. Unless there are specific reasons, providing balance in each other, these segregations will be beneficial. The pod types would be segregated first by child free, child future, and child now. Since it was always assumed that everyone wanted kids and everyone loved kids, they should all want to be around kids. This wasn't exactly true. Most single people I know my age go, yeah, they used to have a group of friends, but they all had kids and became really hard to coordinate with them, so they just fell away. Completely different experiences. So there are pods for people who no longer have kids in the house or never plan to have kids, one for people who plan to have kids in the next 5 years or so, or really want to have kids or love being around kids, and Child Now, which are people who currently have and are raising children. Child Future can shift into Child Now over time. Child raising is such a different experience from child free, it's like being in two different universes. So people with kids can band together to help co-parent and be a support group in a way that child free folks have no way of experiencing and often don't want to. A child-free pod will be made of 50 adults, a Child Future, 40 adults as children will begin to increase their overall size, and Child Now will be made up of 25 to 30. Once they reach that number, a pod will split, divided by people who are the best match for each other based on ideas we will discuss shortly. Communication style will also be the next biggest form of segregation. If you like loud, heated arguments, you will just be that opinionated asshole no one likes or wants to be around, running people off from the group. If you're in a group of people who enjoy that, you'll be with your own kind and have lots of fun arguing loudly with each other. If your communication style is way more calm, collaborative, or you're more often an opinion doormat, putting people who are usually shy and unheard together might help promote their ability to be heard. This will require experimenting and feedback with the openly available algorithm for sorting people. Mixing the shy with the more collaborative may actually be better for a while, as the shy may just sit around unable to start conversations because they don't know how. After that, the sorting process will basically just be down to an OkCupid style quiz system, and people can create their own questions and see how they match with the collective answers of any pod. If you're 100% opposed to an idea as evil, sorting you in with people like that is probably going to make that pod be dysfunctional. However, putting people together who are too much alike creates bubble cults and echo chambers, so you want to mix people up as much as possible if a question is not that big of a deal if someone else doesn't hold that opinion. It'll let people break out of their bubbles the internet created, and seeing people in person will allow them to actually have good faith discussions, creating an actual marketplace of ideas in good faith, instead of what the algorithms your social media platform found made them more money, like fascism, because there were a lot more angry faces associated with them. After that, the sorting process would be really straightforward. You'll be given a list of pods you best fit, ranked, and you can see the average opinion of people, and if they're evil or satanic or no-go, you can decide not to go with that one and instead pick the one right for you. Similar pods can collectively group themselves into an organization or another name we may come up with. Churches or political organizations can have pods within their organization, allowing them more connectedness and communication. The individual pods can organize events and invite other pods or the entire organization to them. One can belong to up to 3 pods, as each may provide a different function, but stacked together, all should provide for and fill all synergistic and supportive needs. Too many, and it will dilute the connectedness. However, if possible, no more than 3 to 5 people of the same pod will be allowed together unless it's too small until it splits, so that a clique of one pod doesn't try and monopolize the other pod. Significant others may be an exception. Pods need to pick at least 4 of the 6 needs to fill: ritual and communal movement, mutual aid, activities, outreach, learning, and goals. Any successful church does at least 4 of these, if not all, so your pod should do the same to be sustainable. If this is used by a church, it can divide up the needs into different pods based on skills, strengthening them further. Next, you'll pick what your cause is: political, religious, activities, or ideas. You can pick 3 out of 4 of these, and you cannot be both political and religious. These should never be mixed, as politics cheapens the religion, and religion radicalizes politics and makes it very dangerous and manipulated. If you're demanding a politician be the same religion as you, you are demanding to be lied to. Next, you should go into specifics. If religious, what religion? What denomination? If political, what ideology? If outreach, what type? Charity? Advocacy? If learning, what subjects? If activities, what kind? You'll also pick what communal ritual activity interests you the most: yoga, dance, tai chi, group singing. You will ask people what your group admires. This will come in later. Next, you can pick a name. Churches tend to have this one zipped up as well, except for those weird word salad churches I've seen. This formula tends to work: the descriptor or admired person, religion, denomination, or ideology, group type, and location. An example would be Grace Baptist Church of Fountain Square, St. Michael's Church of Bedford, Richard Dawkins Secular Society of Springville, The Reason Secular Pod of Chicago, Earnhardt NASCAR Fandom of Horsham, Emma Goldberg Anarchist Pod of Philadelphia, Ayn Rand Libertarian Club of Upper Darby. After this, you will be asked to pick an animal mascot and 2 colors. Sports are highly successful as we love simple symbols and colors to segregate ourselves into. Schools that use the Hogwarts house system created much more sense of belonging and support, but if done right, cause no sense of hostility or rivalry like what actually happened in Hogwarts. So there, you've created a pod. If it gets too big, it will split and you can classify your new 2 pods as an organization. But you are to interact most with your pod. Pods require interaction. Unlike with, say, meetup groups, you can't be passive in pods, or you can get the boot. There should always be a hybrid online option for people with restricted mobility or schedules that don't work with everyone. But one must stay active and attend events in one way or another, or they're just interested or maybe but never actually going. Pods or organizations can still run their events on Meetup to drum up interest from outside and maybe grow their group, but if they're part of a pod, they must have a minimum level of interaction or they'll get purged if there are more people wanting to get into the pod. I'm unsure how to regulate that yet to ensure power-hungry admins don't abuse or let their friends in by booting others, but that might be a minor worry, and more data will be needed to hammer out the best method of enforcing this. Lastly, you will generate rules. Pick all that apply. Can you date members? Too many outbursts will get you kicked out. Too much name-calling will get you kicked out. Not contributing in some way will get you kicked out. Dues are required. Bullying will not be tolerated. Sexual harassment will not be tolerated. So next time, let's do a pretend walkthrough of how to sign up with this hypothetical site. Then we will see what kind of material the site will have for organizing an event to increase the sustainability of the group. So as always, thank you all for watching this as a video or listening to this as a podcast, which I'm sure was completely uncontroversial to anyone, especially to the YouTube monetization team. So if you found this useful, please donate to my Patreon. Just a reminder that I'm Anubis2814 on YouTube, and I have almost 700 videos on my channel that I've made over the past 11 years on religion, science, psychology, and politics. Please go check them out, and if your site has the option, like, rate, review, and comment. A special thanks goes out to Kendall Copperberg, Mylon Mia, Ogrel, Elias Garcia Guevara, and Joe Taylor for their $10 or more Wapawet level donations. I'm always humbled by the fact that they find my work worth funding and worth driving me forward. Thank you all. Please consider donating to my work if you can, and thank you all for listening.